Nothing beats a freshly cooked steak, but sometimes you have no choice but to reheat. So what's the best way to revive a refrigerated steak? We talked to the experts. Before you even start to mess with reheating your steak, begin by letting your central heating do part of the work. Our experts agree that it's a good idea to let your steak come up to room temperature. In fact, according to Chef Michael Paley of Prime 54, this is the most important step in the process. This will allow you to control the finished internal doneness by just concentrating on reactivating the char and outer crust without overcooking the center. Chef Matt Creeder of Steak 954 agrees with Paley on the importance of this pre-cooking step. He says, definitely let the steak slowly come up to room temperature. If you reheat directly from the refrigerator, the outside will become extremely tough by the time the center is the desired temperature. Chef Frank Brusco, who works at Gabriella's Italian Steakhouse, echoes this tip, noting that taking the time to allow the steak to come up to temp ensures that the resulting piece of beef will reheat more evenly than if it had come straight out of the fridge.
Can you be cold, Batman? You have 11 minutes to thaw the bird.
As for how long you should wait, this depends on the size of your steak and the temperature of your kitchen. But as a rule of thumb, Paley notes that he doesn't actually start heating the steak until it has sat at room temperature for about half an hour. While a microwave might seem like the quickest, easiest option for reheating leftover steak, most of our experts find it more problematic than useful. Chef Creeder explains, I would avoid it. Microwaves are great for a lot of things, but not reheating steak in particular. This is in large part due to the way microwaves work. Microwaves reheat food by causing the water molecules within the food to vibrate quickly against one another, something that ultimately ends up causing the steak's fibers to constrict, giving you a chewy, dry finished result. That said, if you do want to rely on the microwave, there are a few tips you can follow. Amy Morton, the restaurateur behind Arnie Morton's Daughter's Place, recommends relying on the reheat mode of your microwave to keep your steak from overcooking. Meanwhile, Chef Brusco explains that the best way to reheat steak in the microwave is by putting the steak back in its original juices and covering the dish in plastic wrap. Reheating times depend on how thick your cut of steak is, but we recommend turning the steak halfway through. Microwaving in 30-second intervals will also keep the steak from overcooking and help ensure it stays as juicy as possible. Most of our chefs agree that the oven is the best tool when it comes to reheating steak. Matt Creeder notes that if your oven has a broiler or a broiler function, this is all the better for the best final result. This stems from the fact that using super high heat means your steak won't take that long to reheat, reducing the risk of overcooking it significantly. He notes that, depending on how done the steak already is, will determine your timing. He continues by explaining that generally a medium rare steak can be reheated for 1.5 to 2 minutes per side. An additional 2 minutes resting time will ensure the heat can permeate through to the center.
That's it! Into the oven with you!
That said, our experts have not reached a consensus on the best way to use the oven to reheat leftover steak. Both Brusco and Morton recommend a far lower heat, 225 degrees Fahrenheit for Morton, or 250 to 275 degrees Fahrenheit for Brusco for the best results. Brusco suggests place the steak on a wire cooling rack over a baking sheet and leave it in for around 20 minutes. The lower the temperature, the juicier your steak will be. The question of whether to reheat your steak over low or high heat is up for quite a bit of debate among our experts, something that is linked, at least in part, to the method you choose for reheating. If using the oven, Morton likes to keep the heat low. However, her preferred method for reheating steak is actually a quick pan fry. For this, she recommends starting with high heat and adding just a touch of spray oil, though you may find your methods and timing change depending on the cut you're working with. Morton says, so much depends on what the person has to reheat, how much they have, and what they feel like. Creeder, meanwhile, also likes a high heat, but in the oven. The broiler setting of an oven typically brings you to a temperature of 500 to 550 degrees Fahrenheit, meaning you can reheat your steak for far less time and hopefully reduce the risk of drying it out. On the other hand, some of our experts prefer to reheat steak with a much lower heat, with Brusco noting that no matter what precautions you take, if you reheat the steak at too high a temperature, it will ultimately dry out. Indeed, according to Chef Creeder, reheating steak over too high a heat is perhaps one of the most frequently committed errors home cooks make. He says, I think most people I see are overly aggressive with heat and forget to rest. The rest is one of the most important parts of cooking any steak. Let the temperature change gradually. It's already cooked. Paley agrees, adding that once the steak is at room temperature, low cooking temperatures are the ideal way to gently reheat it without overcooking it. Working with low heat gives you a greater margin of error. High heat cooking methods may mean that you have mere seconds between perfectly reheated and overcooked. Since the major concern with reheating steak is down to the drying effect that added heat can have, it stands to reason that adding more moisture can counterbalance any flaws. And there may be no moisture source more delicious than added fat. But not any fat source will do. Chef Creeder explains, butter or an olive oil with some flavor are what I would recommend. No neutral oils, there's no real benefit. Chef Paley takes this advice a step further, suggesting fully submerging a steak in fat before slowly reheating it. While he admits this technique isn't always easy or feasible in a home kitchen, he adds that if you're up for all that added fat, it adds tons of flavor and juiciness.
Well, I just got to keep my skin moist so I don't dry out.
Is that what the doctor said?
I read an article in Bon Appetit magazine.
That said, according to Brusco, added fat is far from necessary when reheating a steak, especially if it's a fattier cut. He claims that, for drier cuts of steak, adding oil or butter will help, but if you reheat the steak at too high a temperature, it will ultimately dry out.